Metro Atlanta just became the sixth largest metro in the entire United States, beating out Miami, beating out Washington, D.C. And in a single year, this metro added nearly 62,000 people. That's third in the entire country, behind only Dallas and Houston. So on the surface, it looks like a no-brainer move. But if you've been researching Atlanta for any amount of time, you've probably noticed something. Nobody talks about the part that can actually cost you. The traffic reality, the school boundary complexity that can shift by a single street, the insurance and tax bills that nobody mentions until after you've signed. I'm Tim Trevathan, and I've spent many years helping families relocate into this corridor every single day. I'm going to give you the full picture, not just the highlights, and in this video I'm breaking down the real growth story, why people are flooding into North Metro Atlanta, and what's driving it, the specific areas people ask me about most, and what they cost and who they're actually for, and the trade-offs that most people don't find out about until they're already under contract. Metro Atlanta just cracked the top 6 largest metros in the entire United States. And according to Urbanize Atlanta, citing April 2026 US Census data, the metro now has 6.482 million residents. That puts it ahead of Miami, ahead of Washington, D.C. Both of those dropped in the rankings. Atlanta moved up. And it's not slowing down. In the 12 months ending July 2025, the metro added 61,953 people. That ranks third nationally behind only Houston and Dallas, according to the Atlanta Regional Commission. The metro's growth rate of 0.96% outpaced the national average. Since the start of COVID, Metro Atlanta has gained nearly 400,000 total residents. That's not a spike, that's a structural shift. Now, here's what makes this relevant if you're looking at the north suburbs specifically. The growth is not happening evenly across the metro. Forsyth County and Cherokee County are growing at 2.4% annually. That's the fastest rate of any county in the entire 11-county Atlanta region, according to ARC data published in August of 2025. Gwinnett County just crossed 1 million residents. Its estimated 2026 population per Gwinnett County's own government page, citing Woods and Pool projections, is 1,037,017. 1 million people in a single county. So why are they coming? Job market first. Alpharetta just earned the #1 ranking for career powerhouses among nearly 300 US cities studied by Co-working Cafe in 2026. The Johns Creek Tech Park corridor has Boston Scientific wrapping up a $62.5 million campus expansion that brings in 340 high-wage jobs, according to Site Selection magazine. The economic infrastructure here is not built around one employer. It's spread across technology, healthcare, finance, and professional services. And cost of living compared to where these buyers are coming from is the second driver. Families relocating from Los Angeles, New Jersey, and New York City can get significantly more home here in a suburb with strong schools and established community infrastructure for a fraction of what they were spending. That math is hard to argue with. And climate? 4 seasons without brutal winters. Outdoor access, a lifestyle that works for families at a price point that actually makes sense. All of that is real. The growth is real. The demand is real, but not every part of North Metro Atlanta is the same. And that's where most out-of-state buyers run into trouble. They treat the north suburbs as one decision when they're actually 5 very different ones. So let's go through them. Area #1 on the list is Johns Creek. If there is one suburb in North Metro Atlanta that consistently surprises people when they actually dig into the numbers, it's Johns Creek. Most out-of-state buyers have heard of Alpharetta. They've maybe heard of Suwanee. Johns Creek sometimes gets treated as an afterthought. That is a mistake. Here's what the data actually says. According to my own market analysis on my site, updated January 2026, the median home price in Johns Creek sits at $783,000, with a median price per square foot of $251 and an average of 17 days on market. Now that we're coming out of the summer season, those days on market have trickled up a little bit, but not by much. Redfin puts the median sold price slightly lower at $700,000 for February 2026. Either way, you're looking at a premium suburb, but one that earns it. The median household income in Johns Creek is around $132,000. That is more than double the national average, and 88% of residents hold a bachelor's degree or higher. When the entire community values education at that level, it shows up everywhere, not just in the school rankings, but in the culture of the neighborhoods, the parent involvement, the expectations. And speaking of schools, public schools in Johns Creek average 9 out of 10 on great schools. Johns Creek is part of the Fulton County School District and has 15 public schools across 7 elementary, 5 middle, and 4 high schools. Now, there is a specific reason Johns Creek matters beyond just the schools and income levels. 33.2% of Johns Creek residents are Asian American, including 15.4% who are Indian American. This is one of the most established Asian American communities in the entire North Metro corridor. Korean churches, Chinese grocery stores, Vietnamese restaurants. The cultural infrastructure here is real and deep. This is not marketing language, it is a demographic fact that makes Johns Creek the top destination for families relocating from Los Angeles, New Jersey, and New York City, who want that community already in place when they arrive. The city is also in the middle of a significant development moment. The Medley, a 43-acre mixed-use project, is completing development by 2026, adding dining, retail, and community space to the city's town center vision. The honest trade-off with Johns Creek is price. You are going to pay at a $700,000 to $783,000 median. This is not the entry-level play in North Metro Atlanta. And because demand has been so consistent here, you will not find much negotiating room. Homes move quickly. If you are shopping in Johns Creek, you need to know exactly what you want and be ready to move. But if schools, community infrastructure, and long-term value retention are your top priorities, Johns Creek delivers on all three. Now, area number 2 is Alpharetta. If Johns Creek is the community-first suburb, Alpharetta is the career-first suburb. And right now, it is earning that reputation on a national level. Co-working Cafe just ranked Alpharetta the #1 career powerhouse city in the country for 2026. Out of nearly 300 US cities studied, #1. That is not a local award. That reflects the concentration of tech companies, professional service firms, and corporate headquarters that have landed in and around Alpharetta over the past decade. This is a suburb you choose if one or both earners in your household needs direct access to major employers or wants to be in the middle of a high-density professional network. The price reflects that. Redfin shows the median sold price in Alpharetta at $724,000 for March 2026. Zillow's typical home value for the city comes in at $656,261, up 2.6% over the past year. I have one buyer that's been looking and is in steep competition day in and day out. And honestly, that price seems a bit low. He's always offering in the $800,000 range to find a home that's move-in ready, and those are the ones that have the competition. And you know, you're in similar territory to Johns Creek, and in some cases exceeding it depending on the neighborhood and home type. Alpharetta's population sits at around 66,900, with 13,600 Asian American residents. That's the second largest ethnic group in the city, according to Data USA 2024 ACS data. So the cultural community is present, though not as concentrated as Johns Creek. On safety, Alpharetta earned a spot in ReAlpha's December 2025 rankings of the top 10 safest cities in Georgia. That matters for out-of-state buyers who are trying to vet neighborhoods from a distance. The honest reality with Alpharetta is this: you're buying into one of the most in-demand, highest-performing suburban markets in the Southeast. And that means competition, as I mentioned earlier. In March 2026, homes were sitting an average of 43 days on market. That's longer than the year prior, which tells you buyers have a little more room to breathe than they did in 2022 and 2023. But well-priced homes in strong school districts that are move-in ready are very much the ones that move the fastest. Alpharetta also has a traffic story I'm going to get into a few minutes. Every buyer needs to understand it before committing to a neighborhood here. The career infrastructure is exceptional. The commute corridors can be brutal at the wrong time of day. But if you are a high-income professional who needs to be close to Atlanta's tech and financial sector, or you want to be in a suburb that has everything, Alpharetta is the answer. Dining, retail, entertainment, top schools, all within a short drive. Yes, it does matter to come here and actually see it for yourself. I had a client that was going to move here all the way from South Korea, and when he finally came to visit, he realized the traffic was more than what he expected. However, a lot of people that come from other places that are densely populated with traffic may find it to be the same lateral move in terms of traffic. So again, make sure you come and visit. Area number 3, Suwanee and South Forsyth. Now, we're going to talk about the area that I think is the most underrated value play in the entire North Metro corridor right now, Suwanee and South Forsyth County. If you've been priced out of Johns Creek and Alpharetta, which a lot of people have, or if you want more house for your money while keeping strong schools and low taxes, this is where you need to be looking. Movoto's May 2026 data shows the median sold price in Suwanee at $675,000 with 473 homes sold that month. That's up from 442 the prior year. The average Forsyth County's home value per Zillow's April 2026 data sits at $619,157. And per North Georgia Group's January 2026 market analysis, the Forsyth market is hovering around a $600,000 median, with prices softening about 2% to 3% year over year. They've described this not as a crash, but as the market taking a breath after years of appreciation. That means buyers have real negotiating room that simply does not exist in Johns Creek or Alpharetta right now. This is clearly true, as I remember in 2023 and parts of 2024, even though rates had already gone up, prices were skyrocketing with tons of demand and competition in Suwanee, especially in the North Gwinnett High School District, just out of nowhere. Now, here in 2026, we are seeing a shift where things are slowing down. So right now is a very good time to be seizing the moment in Suwanee. And here's the dynamic that's been driving growth up here. As prices in Alpharetta and Milton have climbed, buyers have been spilling north across the country line into South Forsyth. They get comparable home quality, similar school ratings, and they stay close to the shopping and dining corridors they want. But they save real money on the purchase price. And on the tax side, Forsyth County has held its millage rate at 7.896 mils for 5 consecutive years, per Appen Media's August 2025 reporting. That is lower than Cherokee County at 8.31 mils. On a $300,000 home, the same house costs a Forsyth homeowner $2,550 per year in property tax versus $3,600 for a Fulton County homeowner, according to Realta's April 2026 analysis. That is $1,050 per year and $10,500 over 10 years on the same house. And schools hold up. Suwanee is part of Gwinnett County's school district, and public schools here average 9 out of 10 on great schools, per Movoto's May 2026 data. So you're not trading away school quality to get the value. The honest trade-off is that South Forsyth is farther from the city. If your job is in the Midtown or Buckhead area, for example, and you're commuting 5 days a week, the extra distance does matter. But if you are a hybrid or remote worker, or if your employer is along the Georgia 400 corridor, that is a very compelling option. A lot of out-of-state buyers overlook it because they haven't heard the name Suwanee the same way they've heard Alpharetta. That's exactly the kind of thing I help relocating buyers figure out. The right suburb for your situation depends entirely on your priorities, not just the headlines. Now, we just covered 3 of the 4 areas I want to walk you through. Each one has a completely different cost profile, school picture, and community feel. So if you pick the wrong one for your situation, you could end up paying $50,000 to $100,000 more than you needed to, or landing in a neighborhood where the school boundary puts your kids in a different district than you planned for. Head to the link in the description and download my free Atlanta relocation guide at timtrevathanhomes.com/Atlanta relocation guide. Inside, I break down every major North Metro area by neighborhood with cost comparisons, school information, and what each area is actually like to live in day to day. Now, moving on to area number 4, Duluth and Gwinnett County. If you're a buyer who needs a foothold in North Metro Atlanta without stretching your budget to $700,000 and above, Duluth and broader Gwinnett County is where that conversation starts. Redfin's March 2026 data shows the median home price in Duluth at $482,000. That's down 7.3% from the prior year. The Gwinnett County-wide median for January 2026 sits at $414,000 according to Redfin. That is the most affordable tier in my coverage area, and that price gap versus Johns Creek and Alpharetta is significant. Now, some buyers hear most affordable and assume there's a catch. So let me give you the actual picture. Gwinnett County crossed 1 million residents in 2025. It is one of the most diverse counties in the entire Southeast. And that diversity is not just demographic, it's cultural. The Korean, Chinese, and Vietnamese community, for example, the infrastructure in Duluth specifically is among the most established in Georgia. You have Korean grocery stores, Korean-owned restaurants, Korean churches, and community centers that that have been here for decades. This is not a community that is just starting to form. It is a mature and deeply established area. The trade is that Duluth is farther from some of the premium school districts that Johns Creek and Alpharetta offer. And Gwinnett County schools are solid though, but if your top priority is chasing a specific 9 or 10 rated school, you will need to map the boundary carefully before you commit to a specific neighborhood or street. I'll come back to that in a moment. The Suwanee-Duluth combined market had 749 homes for sale in July 2025, up 7.5% from the prior month, per Rocket's July 2025 market report. More inventory means more options. It also means sellers are more open to negotiation than they were 18 months ago. For buyers coming from expensive coastal markets who want to stretch their dollar, establish themselves in a community with real cultural infrastructure, and not overextend on day one, Duluth and Gwinnett give you that entry point without asking you to compromise on community. Now, having said the 4 places, there are a couple reality checks that you need to be aware of. Reality check number 1 is the traffic and infrastructure. I want to be completely straight with you on this one. Most relocation videos gloss over it and bury it at the end. Atlanta's traffic is not a minor inconvenience. It is a real factor that should influence which neighborhood you choose, which side of the corridor you live on, and whether you need to have an honest conversation with your employer about flexibility before you commit to a home. The traffic problem here is real. And here's the data. Metro Atlanta has the 5th worst traffic out of the top 50 US cities, according to a consumer affairs study cited by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in August 2025. The average daily commute in Atlanta runs 31 to 32 minutes one way. That's the 5th highest commute time in the entire nation, per Atlanta Regional Commission data. The Metro also logs nearly 5 hours of congestion per weekday on average. The North Corridors specifically are 2 of the worst choke points in the system. Georgia 400 heading toward Alpharetta, I-85 heading toward Duluth and Gwinnett. If you're driving southbound toward Buckhead or Midtown, the Atlanta Guide's September 2025 traffic analysis identifies the avoidance window as 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. And honestly, I would probably expand that a little bit. Northbound in the mornings, 7 to 9 a.m. is where you lose the most time. But here's the nuance that changes the math for a lot of North Metro buyers. The ARC's 2025 Regional Commuter Survey, published February 2026, found that Metro Atlanta commuters are now averaging 5 minutes less commute time than in 2019. That's because telework has spread congestion more evenly throughout the day, and among households earning over $200,000 per year, 73% of commuters telework at least occasionally. A lot of my buyers are in that income bracket, so if you have even 2 or 3 days of remote work per week, the traffic reality becomes much more manageable. The honest advice is this: before you fall in love with a house, map the commute at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, not on a Saturday afternoon. The drive from Duluth to Buckhead is not the same thing at those 2 times of day. Where you land in the corridor relative to your office matters enormously, and it is a conversation we should have before you start touring homes, not after. Reality check number 2, schools and district complexity. So every suburb I just walked you through has schools averaging 9 out of 10 on great schools. Johns Creek, Suwanee, Alpharetta, they're all highly rated. So the question is not where North Metro Atlanta has good schools, because it absolutely does. The question is whether the specific house you are buying puts your kids in the specific school you're assuming it does. That is a completely different question. And here's what most people do not realize until they are deep into the process. School district boundaries in North Metro Atlanta are hyper-specific. A single street can be the line between 2 different school assignments. 2 houses a quarter mile apart can feed into schools with meaningfully different rankings, different programs, and different cultures. Johns Creek has 15 public schools across 7 elementary, 5 middle, and 4 high schools, all within the Fulton County R1 district. Suwanee sits within Gwinnett County's district, and both districts are strong overall. But strong overall does not tell you which school a specific address is zoned for. I've worked with families who spent months researching Alpharetta or Johns Creek, found a home they loved, and then discovered 3 weeks before closing that the school assignment was not what they had assumed. That is a painful moment, and it can change the entire decision. The median household income in Johns Creek sits at $132,000, and 88% of residents hold a bachelor's degree or higher. When education is that embedded in the fabric of a community, the school system reflects it. But you still need to verify the boundary before you fall in love with a house, not after. My advice: before you tour a single home in the market, get clarity on the school zones that matter to your family. Let that drive the neighborhood shortlist. I do this with every relocation client I work with because it saves an enormous amount of wasted time and prevents a very expensive mistake. And that leads directly into the last reality check, one that genuinely surprises almost every single buyer who moves here from out of state. So reality check number 3, the hidden costs, taxes, insurance, and what nobody mentions at closing. You've done your research on home prices. You know what you're going to spend. You've run the mortgage payment. You feel good. And then you get to Georgia and you find out there are 2 line items that almost nobody from out of state budgets for correctly. The first one is homeowners insurance, and this one has moved fast. Georgia homeowners saw insurance rates rise 12% in 2024, then another 9% in 2025, according to Value Penguin's June 2026 analysis. The statewide average is now $2,640 per year for a $350,000 indwelling coverage. That's $220 per month. And that number has climbed 39.7% cumulatively since 2021. And Certify projects another 10% increase in 2026 per WABE's March 2026 reporting. Georgia is in the same conversation as Texas and Colorado for steepest insurance rate hikes in the country right now. So if you are buying a $700,000 home in Johns Creek and your insurance quotes come back at $4,000 to $5,000 per year, that is not a mistake. That is the market. Budget for it before you close, not after. The second line item is property taxes, and here's the story that is more nuanced and actually has some good news for Georgia buyers compared to where most of them are coming from. Georgia's statewide average property tax bill is around $2,050 per year, according to ReAlpha's April 2026 analysis. The U.S. average is $3,300. New Jersey averages $6,600. So in absolute terms, Georgia is still favorable, especially for buyers coming from coastal markets. But there's a real difference within North Metro Atlanta depending on which county you buy in. Fulton County homeowners, that's Johns Creek and Alpharetta, pay a median of $4,310 per year with an effective rate of around 0.86% per smart asset. Gwinnett County's effective rate comes in at 0.92%, and Forsyth County, as I mentioned earlier, has held its millage rate at 7.896 mills for 5 straight years. That's one of the lowest in the region. On the same $300,000 home, a Fulton County homeowner pays $3,600 per year in property tax. A Forsyth County homeowner pays $2,550. That is a $1,050 per year savings. $10,500 over a decade on the same house. So when you add insurance and property taxes together, North Metro buyers are often looking at $6,000 to $9,000 or more in annual costs beyond the mortgage. Costs that are not always visible when you're running numbers from out of state on a Zillow listing. And these are the things that are variable. As we know, as a homeowner, our principal and interest are fixed unless if you refinance, but these are the things that are variable that people don't really think about until they have already lived in the home and owned it for several years. So this is not a reason to avoid North Metro Atlanta. The value is still there, especially compared to where most of these buyers are coming from. But it is a reason to do the full math before you commit, to make sure you are comparing apples to apples when you look at where your money buys here versus what it bought you back home. So we've just covered 4 different areas, 3 serious reality checks, and a cost picture that most relocation videos never get into. If you try to figure out which of these areas fits your family without someone who specializes in relocation or knows exactly which school boundaries, tax rates, and neighborhoods match your specific situation, you risk overpaying by $50,000 to $100,000 or landing in a suburb that works fine on paper, but not for your actual life and lifestyle. So call or text me directly at 770-906-0748. I specialize in helping families relocate into North Metro Atlanta, and I'll help you figure out which of these areas actually make sense for your budget, your commute, and your community priorities before you make any decisions.